Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner. Today we're going to be going over Rainbow Six Siege's North America League, week number 1 for stage number 2 of 2023. Unlike Europe, there are no groups. It's a full round robin, so each team plays each other team one time. And so even though there are only 9 teams rather than 10, there are actually a lot more games to cover. We had 8 games to talk about in Europe, but we have 12 to talk about here in North America. Quite a bit more, so let's hop into it. We start off day number 1 with a pretty big upset. Wildcard taking down Sonic 7-2 on Bank. This one was pretty surprising. Even if you were banking on Wildcard making the upset, I can't imagine you thought it was going to be in this dominant of a fashion. Everybody on Wildcard had above a 1.0 rating, everybody on Sonics had below a 1.0 rating. Adam went 10-4, Mark went 11-6, Surf went 8-4, Packer went 7-3, Spirits only went 5-5, but I guess not everybody can have a banger scoreline. And on Sonics, the standout player, but unfortunately not in a good way, was Rexon. He went 1-9, pretty brutal scoreline, but as you'll see in upcoming games, he more than makes up for it with his future performances. For game number 2, we have another 7-2 scoreline, this time M80 taking down Dark Zero on Border. This one looked to be the game of the day, but ended up being a bit of a dud. M80 really dismantling Dark Zero. Gomez was the star of the show here, going 10-5 on KD and 3-1 on entry. Iconic, Diaz, and Spoit weren't too far behind though. And everybody on Dark Zero got pretty similarly crushed, all ranging between -2 and -4 KD. So M80 start off their stage hot, and depending who you ask, this is probably one of the best teams to take down early. Game number 3 is Oxygen versus Beast Coast, and it is our third 7-2 in a row, this time on Chalet. And it also continues the pattern of 4 of the players on the winning team doing very well, and then 1 player not doing so well. In the first game it was Spirits, in the second game it was Kino, and in this game it was Dream, only going 3-8. But not only does it not really matter if you do this poorly when all of your teammates are doing as well as they do, but also you're the hard support, so you do have a bit of an excuse. Foxay and Fish were probably the 2 standout players, not that Newers and Yaga were very far behind, but Foxay had an 11-5 KD with 100% cost, and Fish had 10-3 KD, yes, only dying 3 times in 9 rounds, and he even had a clutch. Game number 4, and finally we have a scoreline that is not 7-2. Luminosity take down Sonics 8-7 on Oregon. And you'll notice that yes, this is already Sonic's second game of the day. There are only 6 playdays and each team plays 8 games. So at the very least, each team will have 2 playdays where they play 2 times. But some teams also have days off, so for each day off, they have to play another day that has 2 games. Luminosity starts the game off hot, winning the first 3 rounds on attack. Oregon is generally a defender-sided map, so at that point you're feeling pretty good. Then Sonics get a round, then Luminosity, then Sonics another round, meaning that Luminosity got 4 of their 6 attacks. And then they switch sides, Luminosity gets 1 more, but then Sonics pieces together 4 rounds, putting them on match point first. But Luminosity pushes overtime, wins a round, and then Sonics wins a round, going all the way to round 15. And then in the 1v1, Silent and Rexon kill each other, but because Silent was on the defense and the bomb had not been planted, the round went to Luminosity, and so did the game. An absolute photo finish and one for the record books. If you didn't watch this game, I highly recommend that you go back and watch it, even though I guess you now know the result. It was a pretty fun one to watch. As I mentioned previously, Rexon really redeems himself for his 1-9 scoreline in the first map. He goes 21-11 and is actually the only player that went positive on kills on his team. And unfortunately, his 21 kills is not enough to get his team the win, but at least it does get his team a single point. On Luminosity side, Silent and Snake were the 2 big standouts. Silent went 17-12 and got the game-winning kill, and Snake went 14-10. He was really hot in the first half of the game, but the second half sort of hampered his performance. 14-10 still obviously being pretty good though. For match number 5, we go back to Chalet, and we have another close one. This time it is Dark Zero taking down Mirage 7-5. And interestingly enough, this is the 5th time in the last 8 stages of NAL that these 2 orgs have faced each other on the first playday. It's actually more common than not, which is pretty weird honestly. And Dark Zero actually won all 5 of these engagements. Mirage has only beaten Dark Zero in 1 NAL stage, and it was not on the first playday of that stage. But at least this one was close. It's been 2 years since we saw these teams go at least 12 rounds. Dark Zero was pretty excellent on entry in this game, Pamba going +3, NJR going +1, and Gaveni going +2. And they were actually really good on frags in general, NJR going 9-7, Pamba going 13-5, and Rice, the brand new player, going 14-7, top frag in the lobby. And on Mirage, Kansan was the only real threat, putting up a respectable 11 kills. The final game of Playday number 1 was between Beast Coast and Wildcard. This was a 7-4 victory for Wildcard on Border. And with this game in the books, Wildcard walks away from day number 1 with the full 6 points, whereas Beast Coast walks away with 0 out of the possible 6 points. On Beast Coast, Hat and Spiff held their own in the frags department, but Doc, Mr. B, and Reverse all sort of struggled, whereas on Wildcard, Packer, Surf, and Spirits were all popping off, going 11-7, 11-5, and 10-6 respectively. Although Beast Coast were the better team on entry, going +2 overall. Day number 2 kicks off with Dark Zero versus Oxygen. This looked to be a pretty tough day for Oxygen. They had to play Dark Zero in their first game and M80 in their second game. And I think on paper, either of these looked like they could have been the game of the day. And this one didn't end up being too terribly exciting. Dark Zero took it pretty decisively 7-3, but we did finally get to see the new map, Nighthaven Labs. Once again, Pambazoo, NJR, and Rice were the 3 best players for Dark Zero, the 3 of them combining for +8 on kills and +4 on entry. Game number 8 for the week was Mirage versus Luminosity. And once again, Luminosity goes all 15 rounds, but they're not able to pull it out. Mirage get the victory 8-7. The map was Cafe, and the standout player, I suppose, was Slothy, going 15-9 on KD, 2-0 on entry. And as for the rest of the lobby, nobody doing spectacularly, nobody doing too poorly, everybody ranging between -4 and +2 on KD. But Asian's 0-4 scoreline on entry was pretty bad. So that's 3 out of 6 possible points so far for Luminosity, not terrible. And though they played a close game previously, Mirage unfortunately didn't get any points versus Dark Zero, but they do get the 2 points from this game. Game number 9, Beast Coast versus Sonics. Both of these teams came into the day 0-2. At least Sonics had the 1 point to their name, but both of them were certainly looking for redemption here. After that heartbreaking loss in round number 15, Sonics return to Oregon and Rexon pops off once again, going 14-6 on KD, 2-1 on entry, and Gunner does pretty well too, going 10-6 on KD, 3-2 on entry. On Beast Coast, we see a 10-8 from Reverse, a 10-9 from Doc, and unfortunately, Spiff matching Rexon's game number 1 performance, going 1-9. So Beast Coast still looking for their first point, but Sonics now looking to battle their way up the board. They're on 4 out of 9 possible points. After a narrow victory just 2 games ago, Mirage step up to the plate again for game number 10. This time they take on Wildcard, and unfortunately for them, Wildcard's hot streak continues. No points for Mirage. It is a 7-4 victory for Wildcard on Border. In defeat, Kansan is once again Mirage's best player, going 14-7. But unfortunately, Mirage had to contend with the likes of Spirits going 13-8, Surf going 13-7, and Adam going 10-6, with Wildcard going +3 on entry overall. For the penultimate game of NAL week number 1, we see M80 versus Oxygen. Oxygen's first game of the day versus Dark Zero wasn't quite the banger it could have been, but I do think this game versus M80 was probably the game of Playday number 2. So if you're going to go back and watch just one game per day, I'd go with Sonics versus Luminosity for the first day and M80 versus Oxygen for the second. After some suggestions by the 2 teams that we'd end up on one of the new maps, instead we see Cafe. Much like we saw in Sonics versus Luminosity, M80 gets off to a 3-round win streak, then Oxygen gets around, then M80 gets around, then Oxygen gets around, bringing it to a 4-2 half in favor of M80. Then a couple round wins on the second half bring it to a 4-4. Then M80 retakes the lead, going up 5-4, but Oxygen gets the next 3 rounds in a row with a finish like you've never seen before. Check out round number 12 in particular. I was out and about while this game was going on, so I wasn't actively watching most of it, but I tuned in just in time to see the final moments of the game, and that play, you know the one, really put a smile on my face. And in a bit of a surprising twist, Oxygen gets all 3 points in this matchup. Gomez continues to be impressive on M80, going 13-8 on KD and 2-1 on entry, but he was no match for Yaga, who went 17-6 versus his old team. And for the final game of the week, we got the most decisive game of the week, Wildcard taking down Luminosity 7-1, once again on Border. Adam, Spirits, and Packer were the 3 standouts on Wildcard, whereas Snake was the only player on Luminosity putting up much of a fight at all, going 12-8 with 100% cost. And these 2 teams actually went dead even on entry. So at the end of week number 1, Wildcard stands head and shoulders in points above the rest of the league. Yes, they have played 4 games, whereas every other team has played 3 max, but they are the only team to have played so far that does not have a loss. And actually, all those other teams that have played have at least 1 regulation loss, so Wildcard is at least 3 points up on every other team in that regard. On rounds, they're 28-11, putting them at +17, so pretty inscrutable. They have played mostly Border, so we'll see how they fare on some of the other maps, but so far they are looking pretty solid. And I'd say their week 1 performance has basically already locked them into making it to the playoffs. So let's talk about a few stats just a little bit. Gomez is currently the highest rated player in the league at 1.44, Yaga not far behind at 1.42, Yaga has the best KD in the league at the moment at plus 19, with Surf and Spirits trailing a bit at plus 15 and plus 13. Surf, Pambazoo, and interestingly Twist have the best entry differentials in the league, all at plus 4. Gomez, Yaga, Diaz, and Iconic are all tied at 81% cost. Spirits is leading in clutches with 3, and Adam and Reverse are the only other players with more than 1. And Kansan currently has the most plants with 5. Canadian has 4, and Spiker also has 4. Kansan and Spiker, of course, both play on Mirage, and every other player on Mirage each have 1 plant apiece, putting the team at 12 total, which is at least double any other given team in the league. And as for map stats, Border's been played 4 times, Chalet, Cafe, and Oregon have been played twice, Bank and Nighthaven Labs have each been played once, and Clubhouse, Consulate, and Skyscraper haven't yet been played in North America. Order and Chalet have been about even for the attackers and defenders, Cafe and Bank have been slightly defender-sided, Oregon has been fairly defender-sided, and Nighthaven Labs was extremely attacker-sided. And finally, let's take a look at the standings. I'll read them off in case you're not looking at the screen. From top to bottom, we have Wildcard, Oxygen, Dark Zero, Sonics, M80, Luminosity, Mirage, Space Station, and Beast Coast. Keep in mind that Space Station haven't actually played any games, but they are much better off than Beast Coast, who have already played 3 games and have not got a single point. As I mentioned previously, Wildcard are dominating. They're perfect on points and they're absolutely hogging the positive round differential. The 2 next best teams only on plus 3. And I won't talk about this too much more, you can see them for yourselves, but I do want to mention that yes, it's only been a single week, but we've already played 1/3 of the group stage playdays, and next week actually has 3 of the 4 remaining playdays. So if you did poorly this week, your fate isn't necessarily sealed just yet, but if you don't turn it around the very next week, it basically is. And I think that's just about going to do it. So what was your favorite game of the week? You have 12 to pick from. I think mine was certainly Luminosity versus Sonics, but if you have another one picked out, do let me know. A like and a subscription is always appreciated, and with all of that being said, I will catch you guys next time.